You are listening to part 2 of the Barefoot Lawyer Reports podcast on the Tiananmen Square massacre. If you have not listened to part 1, please check the link in the description.
Tell us, tell us any other stories you want to tell us about what happened to people you know. How did you not yourself get killed?
Well, I was in Tiananmen Square at that night, actually. I was in charge of another conference, routine conference in Peking University to try to discuss the strategy or something like that. So I wasn't there that night, but I was my dorm. But in the late night, I get a lot of phone call from Tiananmen Square, from other location of Beijing. They call me and told me something terrible things happened and people died. So I know what happened. I tried to organize 200 or 300 students try to back to Tiananmen Square, but the main road already blocked by the police and the military forces.
Mm-hmm. So that hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people killed. Is that?
We don't know the exact number now. I think only government knows.
Yeah, we don't know.
Last year we heard news from BBC that British government has a secret document that said that over 10,000 people were killed by the PLA.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I heard this number. Yeah, from British and the U.S. If the U.S. government have the report, should be almost 20,000. Yeah.
Almost 20. So
yeah, almost. 20,
we think somewhere between 10 and 20,000.
Yeah.
So we don't know the number.
Yeah,
we don't know.
No one knows. Yeah, the correct number.
So, so it started in the night of June the 3rd, right? Did it continue all night and into the day, or was it?
No, it continued for several days.
For several days.
Even June 6th, there's still people killed by the PLA. And there's other protests in other cities like Shanghai and Chengdu. They also have some people died in Shanghai, not in Shanghai, but in Chengdu, at least 100 people died.
Mm-hmm. So they crushed the protests everywhere.
Mostly everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of cities, yeah. When I was in prison, some students told me, at that time, he is a student in Qingdao. Before June 4th, I remember he said May 29, he brings the students from Beijing back Qingdao, but later the Communist Party ordered the military from Xinjiang and stay in Qingdao, tried to kill the students if they stand up to protest. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in fact, not just Qingdao, I think every city the Communist Party prepared to do that. For example, they bring the soldier from Xinjiang to Qingdao and they send the Qingdao soldier to another province like that. So, yeah.
So they don't know the people there.
Yeah. They don't live there, so no, they ignore everything, just follow the
They're not
party.
Sympathetic to the people.
Yeah. So, I think it's very important is I heard from mainland China, a lot of people, some farmer, they talk each other. Mm-hmm. They said, if the Tiananmen Square, the crackdown happened now, or the protest in Beijing happened now, what's the result, do you think? A lot of people said, okay, if the protest happen now, we will stand up to fight back together. We will do in the village, we will do in the small city, the middle city, and to fight back the Communist Party. So I think the Communist Party knows this. This is why the Communist Party, everywhere if some protest happens, the Communist Party will very quick to prepare the police to crack on them.
So
they don't.
I want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that as a consequence of Tiananmen Square and the crackdown, the Communist Party now believes that the people will if that happened again, it would spread very quickly. So when anything happens, they crush it?
Yeah, the one minute if the Communist Party very worried the protests happen again like 1989. The Chinese people said if the protest happen again in Beijing, very quick that will be spread to the whole country. All the people will stand up to fight back the Communist Party.
So you think it would spread now throughout the whole country more quickly and wider, and the Communist Party is afraid of that?
Yes.
Well, CCP learned lessons from this movement, so they decided in the future, if any of this kind of protest happen, they must crack down quickly.
Yes,
Do not
yes.
let it spread to
Yes,
other,
yes.
other cities. So they learn a lot of lessons. That's why they still keep the power now.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, I have met some people who were involved in Tiananmen Square who now are not opponents of the CCP. They say that the student, and they were there, and they said, everybody went too far, and I don't know.
That's not true. That's not true.
But what do you say to somebody who says that?
Well, I know there's a lot of criticize side we're pretty radical, but I think that's not truth because 3,000 students go to Tiananmen Square to have hunger strike, sacrifice their faith. They have willingness to sacrifice their life. They only have two requests. One is have dialogue with the government. Could you say this is a radical request? And another request is they rewrite the April 26th editorial.
Rewrite
the editorial because editorial criticize us as a bad guy to try to overthrow the government. So we request the government to rewrite that editorial. Admit we are patriotic.
Patriotic, right?
Yeah,
right.
we sacrifice our life to just have these two very low requests. How could you say we are radical?
Yeah.
And on the contrary, I think it was government are really radical. They use military crack down the people, but they will not accept this two very low requests. Who are radical? Obviously, it was government are radical.
Guangcheng, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I want to talk more about the military. In fact, the Communist Party tried to use some military to crack down Tiananmen Square, but looks like they ignore that. They don't want to do that.
The military did not want to do that?
Yeah, not follow the order from the Communist Party. So later they have to use another province soldier to do that. So that, from that proof, in the military, a lot of people support students. Yeah. So some official in military, his name is Xu.
Qinxian.
Yeah, Xu Qinxian. Just because the Communist Party asked him to bring the soldier to crack down Tiananmen Square, he refused. So later the Communist Party shoot him.
Shoot him?
Yeah.
Shot him.
He was sentenced 7 years after that.
He was what?
Sentenced 7 years.
Yeah, in prison. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So, okay, so at the Tiananmen Square crackdown kind of crushed democracy movement or liberating movement in China, and the CCP learned the lessons to crack down on democracy and protests and dialogue wherever people want it. So what is this? So what do we say about China today? What does that mean for the future of democracy and human rights and rule of law in China? I mean, is it hopeless?
I couldn't say it's hopeless, but it might take longer time than our expectations. I mean, 1989 is a very important turning point in the history of PRC. after before 1989, I could say even some high-level officials inside the party, they really look forward to some political reform. But after 1989, nobody inside the party dared to advocate for any political reform. And another important thing is why we go to street in 1989, because there were corruption.
There was corruption.
But we were cracked down by the government. So I called what happened in 1989 is a victory of corruption.
Victory of corruption.
That's very important for the further development of China. You could say this is the nowadays picture of China. We have rapid economic growth, but hand in hand with the corruption. That's the true face of China now. So 1999, that's why 1999 is very important. If we succeed at that time, I mean, China will have a healthy development.
A healthy development.
Even healthy economic development than today's. So that's the significance of 1989. So we already lost our hope that the CCP will do political reform. And what happened in 1989 gave us a lesson. Unless we stand up against this regime, otherwise there will be no hope for democracy.
Guangcheng?
Yeah. For me, I want to talk more about that. Now, the Communist Party know if the people have tried to stand up to ask the democracy, and the Communist Party will crack down very quick. And if that, I can sure in the future that will be happening again. I just want to remind the people and the Western democratic countries, if that happens, we should quick to respond, to help the people, to prevent the Communist Party to use the military. Yeah, we have to do and think and prepare that.
Well, I mean, there's no hope for reform. Is there any hope for reform with the CCP in power?
No one believes CCP now, you know. The Communist Party destroy all the social ethics in mainland China. So all the people know about that. Of course, they know where it's better. They know what political system is good. This is why a lot of people tried to get an opportunity to move to Europe, America, like that. So I think, no, for me, no any hope from the CCP. Only we have to throw it to trust heap of history. Only way to resolve the Communist Party to kidnap the country and
so you don't you
enslave
said
the people. Yeah, this is the only way.
Got to overthrow the CCP.
Yeah, have to throw them.
But I still have hope for democracy in the future in China, because I think the CCP can keep their power just because they still keep the economic growth. And they can pay a lot of money to maintaining their power. But obviously, everybody can see that they lost this privilege, this advantage. I mean, the economic will drop in China, and the government will lost enough money to pay those people who support them. I think that's the hope for the future.
That will make the Chinese, the CCP change.
They cannot bribe the people.
They can't bribe everybody.
They cannot bribe the people forever.
I mean, do you think that the CCP today is characterized by Marxist orthodoxy, most of the members, or greed for money?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's only one true Marxist inside the party. They already lost the face of any ideology. All what they want is just keep their power and get money. That's their face. Money is their face. So there's no ideology already.
You agree, Guangcheng?
Yeah, benefit first.
Benefit first. Okay.
So this is why the country keep the power and don't want any democracy grow in mainland China.
Yeah. So, do you want to say anything about, we're coming up on another anniversary of the crackdown on June the 4th. Do you want to say anything to summarize that or memorialize?
Well, I think it is U.S. and the Western countries should also learn lessons from what happened in 1989. After the crackdown of 1989, the Western countries, leading by the United States, they have sanctions on Chinese government. But they dropped it very quickly. That's why I always criticize the former President Bush, because he decided to drop the sanction very quick, just 2 years. Why U.S. do this? I think the Western countries always, for a long time, they have a fantasy for China. Even for CCP, they think if there's middle class in China, if there's economic growth in China, that the country will automatically turn to the direction of democracy. Now we all know this is a fantasy. So
it's a fantasy because we've seen economic growth and it hasn't happened.
It's a fantasy because CCP, of course they want economic growth, but that's not for the countries, for their benefit. So there's no hope for them to do political reform. They will not want, they won't do anything to strengthen their power. So I think Western countries should learn these lessons. The whole 1980s is a kind of a golden time of China. And the whole Western world think, wow, this big change happened in China and maybe China will turn to democracy. But 1989 is a big lesson that even though we have a 10 years golden age, but the government will show their true face if they feel threatened by the people. So I hope U.S. and Western countries remember these lessons.
Do you see the CCP as a threat to other nations besides the Chinese people? Is it a threat to its neighbors or to the U.S., or is it only a threat?
Of course, when CCP have confidence just like this, like Xi Jinping, seems like he's very confident. When they become very confident, of course, they will try to expand their power. First stage is Asia. They already take Hong Kong back.
Yes.
They are going to take Taiwan back. And they will be the number one in Asia, and they will expand their power to other regions. That's the nature of CCP. That's the nature of any dictatorship.
Yeah. Well, Guangcheng says that some or a lot of the wealth that the CCP has made is used to corrode America too, to pay people in America to make people their friends through paying them money. So all the economic growth China has had has also helped the CCP to corrode democratic institutions in America. Right, Guangcheng?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, the CCP is a real threat in the United States because it uses that money to corrupt our institutions, right?
Yeah, they use different way. Propaganda, infiltration, like that. Different way. No principle for the Communist Party. Yeah, they just think how to crack down the West values.
Yeah, and how to keep power and make more money.
Yes.
And send their children to America and Europe to go to school and to have second homes in America and in Europe. So any final thoughts about Tiananmen Square, the lessons for today? I think there's lessons for anybody who supports democracy and human rights. There's lessons for Chinese people who do and for American people who do, that you have to stand up to the CCP because it's determined to crack down on democracy and human rights, no matter what.
Well, as a conclusion, I want to say that I hope the Western country and Western peoples do not lost their hope for China, because we will have a young generation, generation by generation. if you look back in 1989, the Chinese people were brave enough to stand up at that time. So there's no reason to doubt the bravery of Chinese people.
The bravery of Chinese people.
In the future, I still have my hope for the further generations. I mean, when situation changed, I mean, when CCP lost their supporting economic power, I think, and when the conflict between the people and the government becomes seriously, I still believe Chinese people will stand up again.
And the West and the media and the United States and other countries need to respond quickly when that happens.
And I hope they can support any protest happening in China very quick and strong.
Guangcheng?
Yes, I agree about this. I think, yeah, I want to remind the Western people, the Communist Party, the CCP, not just persecuted the Chinese people. They tried to crack down the Western values. So not far away, they just surround us. We should vigilant. We should very careful to do the trade with the Communist Party.
Should we do it? Should we have the trade?
No. I think we should think how to support the mainland China to become democracy system. This is the first important. If we look at the coronavirus, yeah, a lot of people know that is a bioweapon. Right? That is a war. That's a special war. Right?
A special what?
War.
War?
Yeah, WAR. Special war. Yeah, not use gun, not use tank, but they change our life. Yeah. So I think if the Communist Party gets power, the whole world will not safe.
If they keep power and expand power, nobody's safe.
Yeah. Nobody's safe.
And maybe the last point I want to make, I think regime change is very important. I know Western countries really cherish the value of a human right. Human right is very good, but without any regime change, there's no space for any improvement of human right. I hope Western people can remember this.
Okay, thank you. This concludes another episode of the Barefoot Lawyer Reports. We'll be back with another one soon.